welcome to Policy and Politics with me, Tarun Nangia. Ladies and gentlemen, policies in a sense are designed in the Secretariat at Delhi but implemented at the grassroots level. Many times we have seen that many policies that have been designed at the Secretariat in Delhi implemented very well in certain states and cities, but in many states they are not suited. That is why in a large country like India, the local self-government, the local bodies, what we call the municipal corporations, have a very, very big role in terms of the direct impact that it has on people's lives, because here policies for the citizens are implemented. They get direct feedback from the people. They're directly in touch with the people of the land. And that is why this is a part of our series where we chronicle the stories of direct impact on the citizenry. Today, we're going to be speaking to Mr. Shekhar Singh, who is the Commissioner of the Pimpri-Chinchwad Municipal Corporations. As we all know, that this corporation is one of India's richest and a corporation which has no shortage of funds, which also gives it a bandwidth to implement a large range of projects, which it has been successfully doing so for the past many years. May I welcome Mr. Singh on Policy and Politics with Tarun Nangia. Good to see you.
Thank you, Tarun. Thanks.
So at the outset, I want to ask you that today we are going to discuss a pilot project where you worked on slum-free Pimpri-Chinchwad and you selected a slum and move ahead. As we remember, the government of India also has been running a program called the Swachh Bharat, where they want India to be a cleaner country, which also is very important. I want to understand from you firstly that what is this whole concept of a slum-free Pimpri-Chinchwad about? What is the pilot project? In the first 2-3 minutes, if you could lay the ground, then I can ask you specific questions.
So Tarun, it's a zero waste slum project, and frankly, it was started by my predecessor, Mr. Rajesh Patil. That is how it was started in almost about June to July this year. The whole concept was taking forward the whole mission of Swachh Sarvekshan, as you also said. How can we decentralize the whole paradigm of waste segregation and processing? Because going forward with the entire climate change and everything, a decentralized model is what, we prefer. There are a few things which can be decentralized, a few things which will always be centralized. But things which can be decentralized should be centralized. Generally, there are a few challenges in the slum. For example, people go out to work, etc. The garbage collection mechanism, how people respond to the garbage collection, how do they respond to the waste segregation, and how it is all collected, which at times results in some places situation is decent, but some places situation is not very good in terms of the waste collection. So a decision was taken that why don't we decentralize this whole process, and a pilot was started in one of the wards, Ward C. At that point of time, Swell Commissioner Mr. Rajesh Patil and the zonal officer, Mr. Anna Bodale. So that was like a pilot that we started, where the whole concept was that primarily the major waste of that slum should be processed in that slum, and also involve the self-help groups in the collection, in the segregation, in the processing. So the involvement of the self-help group is a key, component of this whole process, where the local stakeholders, the local people, the self-help groups become a stakeholder, not just in collection, in IC, in awareness, talking to people, making them understand what is dry waste, what is wet waste, what is biohazardous waste, and what is sanitary waste, etc. And then also collect it, and they have a better fit with the people around in their slum area, and they can convince them better, they can deal with them better, and also then subsequently process that waste as well.
I want to understand you. Point number A, you first selected a certain ward, which is ward number C in the Pimpri-Chinchwad area, for a slum-free zone, which is that area should be slum-free. Secondly, what you did was you checked if people could segregate their garbage between wet and dry. That is point number 2. Point number 3, you also shared that you involved self-help groups. Can you explain what is that about? How self-help groups are involved in the process of segregation of garbage, and how you went about that process?
So, Tarun, this this pilot that I'm telling you, it's a slum population of roughly about 360 households with a rough population about 1,600, 1,700. The process involves, identification of a self-help group. Generally, there are multiple self-help groups in a slum population or in any area. The first process is identification of self-help groups and try to see, the ones who are interested, ones who can be partners in this whole process. Then after that, after identification, you need to also decide on a place where, these self-help groups eventually can manage their waste. Now, managing of waste can be in two processes. As you mentioned about segregation, also segregation in general, we have been doing in Swachh Bharat now for almost about 4 to 5 years. We've been largely being very successful in that as PCMC. In Swachh Sarvekshan also, we're almost about 96 to 97% segregation, moving towards 100%. But there are few gaps. And to plug those gaps, these self-help groups are then used for IEC awareness about talking to people, trying to explain them. The campaign also, Hara Gila, Sukha Nila, which the government of India is currently running, Maua, and also segregation even beyond that, about sanitary waste and about biohazardous waste. Now, in terms of the processing, obviously there needs to be a place in the vicinity of the slum where we know we could, have a compost pit, along with organic waste composter, shredder, etc., where the wet waste can be composted. Now, how to further use this wet waste? So we've also decided to attach one of our gardens with these self-help groups so that the wet waste, which is the compost that is created, could be used in those gardens. As far as the dry waste is concerned, now there are 2-3 things about dry waste. There are few components of dry waste which are recyclable. Now, those recyclable components, for example, water bottles, some other components, some metal objects, etc., which, the normal, your rag pickers, etc., they can be clubbed, and we have clubbed them together along with the self-help groups, and then they take these recycled dry waste. Now, there are a few non-recyclable dry waste, for example, pieces of glasses and other things which have no value as far as, rag pickers are concerned. These we would again collect and take to our central material recovery facility, which is for the whole of the corporation. And as for the biohazardous waste and sanitary waste, again, we would be handling that centrally. So the whole concept is whatever can be handled locally should be handled locally. Whatever can be handled centrally should be handled centrally, and involvement of the self-help group to take the ownership of their own area.
So under your leadership, the Pimpri-Chinchwad Municipal Corporation, first selected 360 house locality. Secondly, you went about ensuring that they segregate garbage in a manner that one part of it is compostable. Thirdly, you attached a garden to that locality where this compost could be made.
Yes.
Fourthly, you involved self-help groups. Now, in the self-help groups, do you pay them for working for this, what you can say, scheme that you are implementing?
Yeah, definitely. We are paying them to work for this scheme also. And, just as a side point, there's another initiative which started almost with this, where we've, under Navi Disha concept, it's called Navi Disha, where we've given self-help groups the management of toilets as well in the slums. And that itself has been a very hugely successful. And I think both these projects started almost at the same time. Now we are paying them for the collection also. Now we are paying them for the processing also. But we are saving the cost in terms of the diesel cost. We are saving the cost in terms of the transportation. Something which had to be transported earlier to the central station can now be processed at the local level.
And simplify for my viewers, you are saying that you pay the self-help groups, which are groups of women, for segregating this garbage.
Yeah.
But earlier, all the garbage used to be transported via dozens of trucks to the central dump yard. You're saving that fuel and that truck cost, basically. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely. Okay. So roughly what we've calculated is it's about 80 to 86,000 rupees per month. That's the sort of a saving that we're looking at. Now, so it's not just the saving part also, right? Because there are other parameters involved. So there's a parameter of about strengthening of the self-help groups, giving them a confidence that they're part of this whole process. There's also a concept, or there's also a, intention of making this process more deep-rooted in the minds of the people, because if someone local is trying to explain it to them, they can handle it much better. There's also a concept of, handling it locally, where you save on the fuel cost, you are saving or moving towards a better, climate change strategy, better sustainability strategy. So there are 3-4 components involved in it. And yes, at the same time, there is some bit of saving also. Now, there has been some learning also from our side, Tarun, like what we started as a pilot. We've learned few things. And now we are trying to create a model where we have now decided to take one slum in each zone. Moving forward, take one slum in each zone. We are trying to formalize the process better. We are trying to give them better shredders and better organic waste composters, trying to help them out with the composting process, trying to help them out by formalizing and attaching rag pickers with them, and then formalize the whole concept. So yes, there is a bit of an investment involved, but overall, apart from the CAPEX, the OPEX cost is something that would be eventually a neutral cost or would be a saving.
I want to ask you these two things. under your leadership, has the Pimpri-Chinchwad Municipal Corporation developed a SOP that what you have done with these 360 houses, is it replicable in any city, in any town in India? I'm asking you this because Maharashtra, to some extent, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, they have municipal corporations with good budgets. A lot of other states have municipal corporations where the budget is barely 400, 500, 600, 700 crores. They are routinely running short of funds to implement the schemes. In fact, waste disposal and collection are the key areas where they are lagging the most, is what anybody who travels over India sees. Your inputs on that?
Tarun, a quick example. Say, for example, the toilets thing that I talked about, or even the waste disposal scenario, right? We're already spending, let it be a small municipal council or a big municipal corporation, we end up spending money, either we outsource it to an agency or we end up spending money through our employees and through our Safai Mitra, etc. Now, what we are doing with regards to toilets as well, it was already outsourced to an agency, but now we are paying the same money to the self-help groups. Because they are the stakeholders themselves, they are the ones who are also using these toilets, their families are using, their neighbors are using, they're able to manage it in a better fashion than what probably an outsourced private agency would have been doing. So that makes, this stakeholder concept makes it a bit better. Yes, there is an SOP that now we, as I said, taking learnings from this pilot that we are doing in one of the zones, we are now replicating in the remaining 8 zones. So we have formulated, yes, remaining 8 zones. So we'll have 1 slum in each zone to begin with, and eventually scale it up to all the 72 slums of our city, eventually trying to make them zero waste. But as I said, zero waste to the extent that something which is absolutely non-recyclable or something which is hazardous, obviously we'll be taking it to our central facility. That can't be handled at the local level.
I want to ask you something. What gave you the motivation to take such a project? Because I understand in a municipal corporations, there are anyways hundreds of things to take care of on a day-to-day basis. What is the motivation behind this initiative that you have taken forth, pushed and supported?
Tarun, I think I'll have to second guess my predecessor's motivation because I've told you, frankly, it was started under my predecessor, Mr. Rajesh Patil. But one of the motivations was that PCMC historically has progressed well in terms of the Swachh Sarvekshan. But still we are some distance away from being, say, top 5 or top in the country. Now, having said that, slums have been one of the sort of perennial problems, if I can put it that way, where, either A, let it be any municipal corporation, the level of involvement from the corporation is sometimes lacking, the level of involvement from the people sometimes is lacking, or we are not able to convince them or make them aware properly. So I think that was one of the realizations where, slums, and especially the slums near the rivers, etc., sometimes not now, but some time back at least, in the rivers, sometimes there was waste collection or there were GVP points, garbage vulnerable points, etc., near the slums. So I think a decision was taken by my predecessor that one of the ways where it can be done, and I think Navi Disha and they came together, and that was almost at the same time when there was a thought of strengthening the self-help groups also, because eventually they give them some sort of economic leeway as well, because they get some money and then our work also gets done. So I think that was the whole thought process.
One thing also, it is nice that a lot of India can learn is that you constantly revere that you took ahead the work done by your predecessor, who was Commissioner Rajesh Patil. In India, this is a rarity because many times when a new bureaucrat takes over, there is a lot of change of style and structure and schemes. This is one, I think, something that gives us a lot of hope, because when there is continuity, there is progress. Policy certainty is what is required even at the local level, because people get used to a style of living if that is for the better. Indore is a great example of it. I think PCMC can be another example, because I think these things, once they catch on, then there is a demand from the people. I want to ask you, how big a challenge do you see of implementing this scheme, which is slum-free, in a sense, zone in all the parts of your city? Is it easier said than done? Because this is a 360 household. You may be having much bigger slums in the city. What are the challenges you foresee in the coming weeks and months?
Challenges, Tarun, are multifold. The first challenge is to find the right self-help group, who is A, enthusiastic enough, B, they are, they should act like a cohesive unit where they feel that, this is something that is their own. So the first and foremost challenge is always to identify a self-help group which is a good fit to take that project forward. Definitely a challenge is also from the agencies who are currently working, because this entire thing is now shifting to the self-help groups and the ladies who would be managing it. So definitely that is also a bit of a, I don't want to use the term lobby, but a bit of a pressure group, where it comes into direct conflict. In terms of the challenge also, sometimes when you're dealing yourself, I said, yes, if you are a stakeholder, you can manage it much better. But that also presents a challenge as well. When you yourself have to explain things to you, people around you, it can go either way. But mostly I would like to believe it goes in the positive way only. And when we are scaling it up, we have to find the so space is a requirement which is very important, because we need to have an organic waste composter, we need to have facility for composting, space availability would be important, challenge to join a garden would be important, so that that compost can be used. If we keep generating compost day in day after, obviously it has to get used somewhere. But we've also thought about, like we are doing with few of our bulk waste generators also, that we would start purchasing this compost from these probably self-help groups or bulk waste generators for a horticulture department as well. So that we are anyway taking compost from our central facility, but we would start taking compost from the self-help groups also, or we'll start taking compost from bulk waste generators. But there's always a challenge to connect, to have that sort of a connect. And also to ensure that the SOP gets followed once we scale up. Because, in a pilot, as you very rightly pointed out, it's easier said than done in a pilot. But once you scale it up into 72 slums, to maintain that quality of implementation is something that we would be closely monitoring. We have formed a core team also, which would be monitoring this whole concept, so that we don't falter once we scale up from 1 to 8 and then from 8 to 72.
I want to ask you this, that how crucial is the support of the municipal councillors of the corporation in implementing such a project in various wards of the city?
So absolutely, that support is something which is very, very critical, very crucial. Currently, we don't have a body in PCMC. The elections are yet to happen. They are some time away. But till that time, we've generally had a good collaboration with all our councillors. All the local representatives have been welcome to the idea of Swachh Sarvekshan, about cleanliness, etc. I don't think we would be finding much opposition from them, because at the end of the day, it works out well for everyone.
One last question I wish to ask you. You started something which might just catch on with the people. People would start demanding clear localities, cities. What do you feel about the change in psychology of the people? Because you introduced them to a new way of living where they live better, they live cleaner. So even if, because PCMC as a town has a lot of foreign tourists coming, I wouldn't call them tourists because they come mainly for business. So, but we have a lot of, so do you think that you are actually a part of a whole ecosystem change for the township where people will lead better lives? And it is also good for the city's image because it is primarily an industry hub.
Tarun, there is just no doubt about that. And as we are progressing as well, you see this whole momentum that it gained about cleanliness, about Swachh Bharat, roughly starting about 2014 and 2015. And we've been going from one step to the other step, and we are maturing as a country also. We are maturing in terms of our processes also. We started with a basic cleanliness. Then we went on to the ODF. Then we went on to ODF Plus, and then ODF Plus Plus. Now there are, under GFC, there are ratings. So there are 3-star, 5-star, 7-star ratings, and there is Water Plus. So this entire paradigm has now come to a point where, the current Swachh Sarvekshan theme is also waste to wealth, where, in the entire circular economy paradigm, the waste needs to be looked into from a different angle than what we are supposed to look at it. And obviously, when all this is happening, the support from the people is very, very critical and crucial. And people have rightly so started demanding that their neighborhoods be clean, that their streets be clean, that why the sweeping is not happening, or why this kachra has not been lifted, etc., etc. We have a really good app which is called Smart Sarthi. It's a really great platform which was started by Srikhar Pardesi sir way back in 11 and 12, and now under the Smart City, it has been integrated into a Smart Sarthi app. So the grievances also, so people are very, very active in PCMC. If they find, for example, somewhere, kachra being kept which has not been lifted, we get complaints from the people. Now we've started a feedback mechanism for our community toilets, for our public toilets, so that people can rate their toilet through an app, and they can rate whether it's clean, whether it's not clean.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shekhar Singh A, for sharing the whole story of how a slum-free city ecosystem is being planned, developed. A pilot project is already ready. You plan to replicate it. Thank you for sharing this story with all the viewers. I'm sure a lot of other municipal corporations would like to take note of the efforts that Pimpri-Chinchwad Municipal Corporation is doing. We learn from each other. That is, in a sense, the hallmark of our democracy. And I think this is something that a lot more people should know. Appreciate your joining us. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Now, after Mr. Shekhar Singh, the ward officer who was in charge of the project, we will move on and speak to him for a few minutes. But that's some time from now. अभी मेरे साथ जुड़ चुके हैं अन्ना बोदरे जी, असिस्टेंट कमिश्नर है पिंपरी-चिंचवड म्युनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन के, जिन्होंने खुद एक्टिवली इस प्रोजेक्ट के ऊपर काम किया है। अन्ना जी, एक तो आपको बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं ऐसा प्रोजेक्ट अकम्प्लिश करने के लिए।
थैंक यू।
मेरे को आप एक बताइए कि ये शुरू से कैसे हुआ, क्या चैलेंजेस आपको आए थे जब आपने कहा था कि मैं एक स्लम फ्री जोन के ऊपर काम करना चाहता हूँ?
स्वच्छ भारत मिशन के अंतर्गत पीसीएमसी ने जो इनिशिएटिव लिया था, तो हमारे जो म्युनिसिपल कमिश्नर राजेश पाटिल साहब थे, उन्होंने कुछ मीटिंग में बताया कि सम ऑफिसर्स शुड कम फॉरवर्ड विथ न्यू आइडियाज. ओके, सो आई थॉट व्हाई नॉट मी. So I started from myself, and I have very good relations with slum dwellers because I was handling the charge of the slum department also. So most of the slum dwellers were in touch with me. So that time I talked to these slum dwellers, and then the self-help group from that area. I was aware about their financial conditions. So I had talked with them, and ये जो सब आइडिया है कि उनको मैंने बताया कि हमें ऐसा करना है कि ये जो स्लम है, ये जो झुग्गी झोपड़ी इलाका है गौड़ी माता का, हम जीरो वेस्ट स्लम क्यों न करें. So 3-4 times I have taken meeting with them. वहां के जो रहवासी थे उन लोगों के साथ 100-200 लोग थे, कई 500 लोगों के ऐसे मेले लिए, उनके साथ बैठ के एक 2-4 मीटिंग उनके पास की. पहले तो बहुत हमारे यहाँ इतने अपने सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप है ऐसा बताया जाता था. तो मैंने बोला ठीक है, आप कौन सा सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप इसमें बचत गट जो है वो कौन सा आगे आएगा, जरा आ जाइए. तो फिर ये ऐसी चर्चा होते होते 2-3 महीने गए. हमने जून जुलाई से ये शुरू कर दिया, तो जून जुलाई अगस्त तक ये फिर हम लोग अगस्त में इस मुकाम पे पहुंचे कि ये प्रोजेक्ट क्यों न शुरू किया जाए. तो फिर हमने 15 अगस्त की तारीख डिक्लेयर कर दी
2022 में, ये 2022 में, और 16 अगस्त को जिजाऊ महिला बचत गट, वहाँ महिला बचत गट है गौड़ी माता स्लम एरिया में, मेरे सी जोन में. तो मेरे जो कमिश्नर साहब थे उनसे भी बताया गया, और 16 अगस्त को हमने ये प्रोजेक्ट लॉन्च कर दिया. उसके पहले हमें कुछ लोकेशन फाइंड आउट करना था कि क्या कहाँ पे कचरा लाया जाए. ये गीला और सूखा कचरा अलग अलग तो देते थे, लेकिन वो वहां से लाना, यहाँ डंप करना, यानी कि वहां पे पीट चाहिए थे. तो मैंने मेरे डिपार्टमेंट से, सिविल डिपार्टमेंट से वो पीट बनवाए, कौन से स्टैंडर्ड में चाहिए वो बनाए. वो फिर गीला और सूखा कचरा आने के बाद गीला कचरा वहां पे श्रेडिंग करना पड़ता है. वैसा ही डायरेक्टली घर से कोई उठाया और डायरेक्टली डाल दिया तो वहां पे बदबू आती है. तो वो श्रेडिंग करना शुरू कर दिया. वो श्रेडिंग के लिए मशीन हमने लाई,
तो श्रेडिंग शुरू कर दिया, उन महिलाओं को सब समझाया। हमारे मेरे जो साथी है वहाँ के असिस्टेंट हेल्थ ऑफिसर तानाजी दाते और मेरे वहाँ के सैनिटरी इंस्पेक्टर यानी कि मुकादम तक मेरे जो वहाँ के सब साथी है वो नीचे तक काम करने लगे और हर एक को जाकर बताने लगे कि ऐसा ऐसा कचरा देना है। आईसी टीम हमने लगाई, इन महिलाओं का हमने सपोर्ट लिया क्योंकि वो महिला बचत गट जो है वो वहां के रहवासी है और उनको सब घर में 400 घर में कौन कहाँ पे रहता है, कौन सुबह काम पे जाता है, कौन शाम को जब काम में जाता है, कौन कचरा गीला सूखा अलग अलग नहीं देता, ये सबको पता था। और फिर हमने उनको इंसिस्ट करने के बाद लोगों ने सब तो शुरू कर दिया। फिर ये महिला बचत गट आने के बाद हमारे जो वहां पे सफाई मित्र थे वो भी उनको सहायता देने लगे। फिर पीट एक भरने के बाद दूसरा पीट रेडी चाहिए, श्रेडिंग उसके ऊपर क्या क्या चाहिए क्योंकि हमें कुछ उसमें कुछ इंग्रेडिएंट डालनी है, तो वो भी हमने नीम पाउडर है वो नीम पाउडर परचेस करके उनको दे दिए। सेफ्टी मेजर्स थे जैसे कि ग्लोव्स है, मास्क है, वहाँ ये सब इलेक्ट्रिसिटी की व्यवस्था है, ये सब करके।
अन्ना जी, इससे दो चीजें हुई हैं। आप ये कह रहे हो कि जो बचत गट यानी वुमेन सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप है उनको भी एक जीने का साधन यानी उनको भी कुछ पैसा मिला क्योंकि आपने उनको अपॉर्चुनिटी दिया पैसे कमाने का, और आपका जो ट्रक से कचरा भर के मेन डेपो में जाता था वो बंद हो गया।
हमारा
मेरे को आप एक छोटा सा बताइए, बहुत सारे लोगों को क्यूरियोसिटी है कि बहुत सारा जो कचरा उठता है इंडिया में बहुत जगह पे उसको जला देते हैं जिससे बहुत पोल्यूशन होता है। आपको लगता है ये बहुत कम हो सकता है उससे, क्योंकि आपने तो यहाँ पे पूरा सेग्रीगेट कर दिया, जलाने की बात ही नहीं है।
यस, हमने क्या किया, वहां का दिल्ली का कलेक्शन जो था वो 637 केजी था।
हाँ।
दोनों मिलके गिला उसका, और 637 केजी हमने जो वहां से लेके आते थे, हमारा वहीं पे गार्डन है, वहां लेके आने के बाद अभी 3 महीने के हर महीने में 18 टन हमारा कचरा जो मोशी के डेपो पे जाता था और वहां पे 18 टन के ऊपर प्रोसेसिंग करनी पड़ती थी। अभी मैंने 3 महीने से यानी कि 16 अगस्त को शुरू हुआ, अभी 16 दिसंबर को 4 मंथ कंप्लीट होने वाले हैं। तो ये कचरा हमारा 6 फोर्जा यानी कि 18 फोर्जा इतना कचरा हमारा प्रोसेसिंग यूनिट पे जाना बंद हुआ, इसलिए वो गाड़ियां की जो ट्रिप थी वो डीजल बच गया, वहां पे जो खर्चा है वो बच गया और महिला बचत गट को वहीं पे उनको रोजगार मिल गया। ये महिलाएं दूसरे कंपनी में काम में जाती थी, ओके, वो 6-7-8 हजार रुपए में दूसरे कंपनी में काम पे जाती थी और 8 घंटा उनको काम पे देना पड़ता था। अभी वो अपने बच्चों का संभाल के, फैमिली को संभाल के ये प्रोजेक्ट के ऊपर काम करती है। 2-4 घंटे में सब पूरा अपना काम भगा लेते हैं और फिर पैसा भी उससे मिलता है और उनका 8-10 घंटा जो कंपनी में जाके उनको जाता था वो भी सब बच गया, यानी कि सब जो फाइनेंशियल जो ये है उनको सपोर्ट मिल गया अपने ही वस्ती में।
तो अन्ना बोदरे जी असिस्टेंट कमिश्नर है पिंपरी चिंचवड म्युनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन के, उन्होंने सारे लोगों के साथ ये साझा किया कि कैसे देश का सबसे पहला स्लम फ्री व्हाट यू कैन से गार्बेज फ्री स्लम कैसे क्रिएट हुआ है। थैंक यू सो वेरी मच अपना समय देने के लिए और ये जो कंसेप्ट है सारे लोगों से शेयर करने के लिए। थैंक यू सो वेरी मच।
For more such videos, subscribe to the Newsx YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.